Saunders is a secondary RE teacher from South East London. In the Key Stage 3 and 4 RE programme, Art Workshop, we saw her trial various artistic approaches to RE. Today, Angela puts what she learnt into practice by incorporating an art sketchbook technique into a Year 7 class on the Jewish story of Passover. Angela's lesson highlights some of the important practical issues involved with using art and offers guidance on how best to maximise its effect. To evaluate the lesson, Angela is joined by Paul Hobbs, the artist who led the workshop, and David Griffith, an RE consultant with experience as an Ofsted inspector.
This is our starter question that we're going to have a little think about. And what does the story of Passover tell us about the Jewish understanding of God?
My main objective was to move them forward in their understanding of the topic. My other objective was to see them working in this totally different way. Israelites. What do you actually think those people, those Hebrews, those Israelites, understood about God? Beverly?
That he was an important person and how he helped them.
So we see God as a helper.
They think he's a giver because he gave Moses the job of being their leader.
What is it about the firstborn son being killed and the angel of death passing over that makes the Jews want to celebrate?
All the Jews had to put lamb's blood on their houses and doors, so the angel of death, whenever he passed by, he didn't kill the firstborn.
Right, and their sons were still alive. How were they feeling?
They were feeling happy.
And how did they feel towards their Jewish God?
They now believe in God because God told them what to do and it worked.
What did really work well in that opening session was the fact the pupils got to the point where they said, God acted in this way, and marvellous phrase, it worked. And so the whole of the Passover meal suddenly took on a life of its own.
So that has actually made them believe even more in this God. Suddenly, from God seeming not to help them because of all the pain and uncomfortableness, God is actually now seen as somebody who has helping them. So
the problem with any practical lesson is time management. You actually spent quite a large part of your introduction using valuable time recapping, which could have been given to talking to them about actually what this new art project was about.
What was this book called?
Haggadah.
The Haggadah. And when do the Jews use this very special book?
On the night of Passover.
Right. It's the telling of the story. But I want us to do a bit more than that.
You then did a very good switch by bringing in the artefact, the Haggadah, which then changed it through its illustrations and its Hebrew writing from something that is talking to something that, here's the artefact, this is evidence of what they do. And I thought that worked very well.
Do you remember that I showed you yesterday the sketchbook that I had made? What we were doing, instead of me writing about it, I could actually show this in a different way. So I could actually use paper, I could use wire, I could use colour, I could use anything to actually help me express my ideas. So the first thing that you're going to do is you are actually going to get the sheets of paper that you are going to make your book from. In terms of planning, it's not just about planning your lesson, but also all the problems of resourcing it, not just to say a week in advance or 2 weeks in advance. You need to actually be developing this as a way of working to build it in. I want you to think about how are you going to show on your first pages. Share some ideas. Think about colours, think about images, right? Before we actually move. And I'm actually going to give you a sheet of paper on each table for you just to scribble on or to work out some of your images or ideas.
You could have started the brainstorm with everybody having their own piece of paper early on when you were doing the discussion on the blackboard and Sue was writing notes, so that all the ideas that Sue wrote up on the blackboard, each person should have written them down themselves not so that they're copying, but so that actually it's helping them remember. Maybe they're encouraged to do a drawing, so the word is doorpost, so perhaps they draw a door frame as well as write the words. By having them actually drawing something themselves, they're already generating some of their own ideas.
And I'm going to have the house with the little door with a red bit on, symboling the lamb blood.
Okay, that sounds great. So why don't you make a quick sketch of it now and write down some of the bits. And then when we have this brainstorm, we can add other ideas to it, okay? What was delightful was I thought that some of them were quite passionate about how they expressed that. They sort of said, well, can't you see, this is what it is, you know? And whereas if it was an essay, they wouldn't fight for that, you know? They would just sort of say, well, it's okay.
I also think it's quite useful in this sort of activity to have a drafting stage. So in other words, you put up on the board 5 pages and get them to do a sort of storyboard with the 5 pages, and then they talk amongst themselves and see whether that's a good idea.
So how do you think you would start it off on the front?
Well, we see I need a title.
You don't necessarily need a title, do you? No. It was almost as if they were frightened of just screwing up a bit of paper or cutting up a bit of material and just expressing themselves that way.
It was a question of how much choice did you allow them in the time that we were operating in, and how much structure do you need for at least them to feel a bit secure to even sort of begin the process. And it's that balance.
Right, girls, if you walk yourselves round, you've got paper that you can tear, there's wire, there's coloured paper, anything you can use.
So when somebody looks at this, what would you want them to be able to understand?
I want them to, because I'm going to use some of this for the door, because it's rough, because they won't have proper materials to build their homes, because they're slaves and they won't have the good stuff. They'll have like hay and stuff.
Right.
So I'll put that as the door like that.
At first you had this sort of moment of people, you know, you could feel everybody thinking and wondering, what am I going to do and how am I going to get to that? And then very shortly afterwards you look around the room and just heaps of responses.
The confidence that some of them had, which I haven't necessarily seen when we have done a more traditional lesson. We're talking about the colours that we're going to use, and I said, oh, might you suggest this? Well, no, I see it like this, and that was good. They felt confident enough to challenge the adult teacher in the room about their view of how they thought it should be.
What's important is that it doesn't stray into PSE. So often when RE teachers try this sort of approach, it doesn't remain linked to the subject, and therefore the learning experience tends not to be as of higher value as it can be.
Yes, would that be good?
Yeah.
Yes? Right, what I'm actually... That's all right, I'm really glad you've come over.
It's going really, really well.
I'm not sure that we'll get beyond the first page. What do you think?
I don't think that's a problem, because at this stage they've thought through lots of ideas.
Well, this
in
is
fact, now they're actually doing them in a way that's not as important as the thinking through.
They have actually done quite a lot of thinking and talking, which is really what I wanted, but this obviously could take much longer.
Exactly. So,
yes, is that okay?
I think that's fine.
I was very conscious that there were 2 pairs of students at the back who were finding it a bit more difficult.
One way teachers can cater for that is by having a checklist of points which can be given to all pupils, so that you don't have to go to every pupil. They can go back to and say, right, these are the number of pages I have to do, these are the places I can find the answers, these are the sorts of materials I can do, and so that prevents them always calling the teacher's attention. And so it may require some teachers with some classes to actually define the groups.
You've only just got started on your first page and you've done lots of talking and sharing ideas. That has been really, really good. And I'm going to say, I want you to start thinking about the second page. Pharaoh is now going to let the Israelites go. So we might suddenly on our second page go, pow, surprise, we're free.
How have you found it as you've looked on to see what people are doing?
Well, my question really was whether they were
being artistic enough. Some of the ones who weren't very sure almost moved into the mode of drawing the story.
Yes.
But as they realised that actually there were different materials they could use, more and more of them have begun to use them. Do you think they're going to be able to make that leap into seeing an artistic way of expressing how Jews feel about the Passover?
Perhaps what they really need to do is think about what would the body language of those people look like, what objects can they use to symbolise those different expressions. So it needs to be pinned down to something in real 3D terms that they can use.
And they are actually choosing different facets. You suggested the door, but somebody else is suggesting the parting of the Red Sea. So I think that's very encouraging.
The very fact that they've stuck it down on a page allows you to talk about it and try and open up some of the areas of confusion.
Right, girls, listen. You're going to tell all of us exactly what ideas you had on here, and then how you decided and what that's telling us.
Well, I decided to do this as like the angel of death passing over the house with the blood on it. I chose this bit for the old tatty houses, and I used this rough sort of thing just like what the road was like. And that's like the wind of the angel of death, and that's the plague.
So your angel of death was moving like the wind, yes? And you've got that movement beautifully. And
this bit is that plague that's coming out to kill the firstborn.
Well done. Should we give her a clap? So I think that's brilliant.
Perhaps what one needs to say to teachers is be prepared to try it, for it not to work, evaluate it, see its strengths and its weaknesses, then try it again, and then try it again. But I think one of the important things in all those situations is to try and get as much feedback as possible from the pupils and to see it as a joint project with them.
Right, Sophie, I'm going to ask you to explain your ideas for your second picture.
And for my second idea, I've decided to do a fence, one side with a dark cloud of rain and the other side is to have the Star of Jerusalem on it. One thing for that is to show the happiness, and the other one is to show that in the 20th century that they were going to get punished even more.
That, Sophie, was really, that's excellent. Right, should we give Sophie a clap, everyone?
Yeah. In terms of planning, what happens after the 45 minutes, the 50 minutes?
Yeah.
Do they take it away? Is it a long-term project? Or by the end of 45 minutes, is there a basic they should have achieved?
When you build this in, how much time are you giving it? Are you going to then give them the opportunity to do it as homework, or maybe because we have extended school, so maybe some of them then might have stayed on. So there are quite a few issues for teachers to consider.
Right, we're going to continue some more work on this, but what I would like to do, I think we could give yourselves a big pat on the back, so I'm going to say, let's give you a clap because you've done really well. Well done.
I think in any practical lesson, the important things are the planning, knowing that time management is going to be a problem, and resource material preparation.
I would say, don't be anxious, but enjoy it. The picture of those kids absolutely on task, being really creative, that was brilliant.